I want to go back to another guest, because all this week we've been speaking to several people who are going to be taking part in a TEDx talk, which is being held in Leicester next week at the Curve. All TED talks, they're pretty inspirational talks. It's about sharing ideas. Some of them are quite moving, some of them are quite magical, some of them are just very, very good, simple knowledge. Some of them are quite inspirational as well, actually. And TED's quite a big company. It is involved in several different countries around the world. But when it comes to regional TED Talks, they're known as TEDx Talks, and one, as I say, will be in Leicester. Already this week, we've spoken to the chief executive of the National Forest. We have heard about the man who plays a vital role in Samsung Technologies, of course, which was quite interesting talking to him yesterday, and many more, of course, as well. But today is the chance to talk to Marc Wileman, who's a scientist. Now, you'll know of Marc because he's been on the show a couple of times before. I actually went out to meet him as well, where he is based. He's known for firing smoke rings and making slime and winning an investment on the BBC's Dragon's Den. He's also inspired more than 500,000 children to discover how awesome science can be. Particularly some days children don't find science very entertaining or inspiring, or might try and show away from it. And he has an award-winning Sublime Science Party, which you can put on at your school. His dedication to changing the way science is taught has even been recognised by Her Majesty the Queen with a Queen's Award for Innovation. He'll be there talking at this TED Talk next week, but I'm delighted to say he can spare a few minutes with us on the phone today. And Marc, how have you been since I last came out to see you?
I have been very, very well. Great to speak with you.
What's been going on since that Queen's Award for Innovation that you got? I mean, how have things developed since then?
If you can believe it, things have just kind of got even busier. Even more pots of slime, more smoke rings, more awesome science, and more busy times.
Just talk to us, for those who didn't hear our interviews and our chats before, how did you get involved in selling science to young people? I mean, what was your own background in this?
Yeah, it's a lifelong kind of passion, I guess, for me. I first got into science when I was about 8 years old. George's Marvellous Medicine was the introduction for me, listening to that on cassette. That's unfortunately how old I am, but while in the car with my parents listening to all these stories of mixing potions and experimenting, that led me through right the way up to doing a master's degree in physics, and then communicating science around the world, from Canada to obviously England to Australia, setting up Sublime Science about 8 years ago, and then obviously Dragon's Den.
Yes, of course. But you could have been, or you are a scientist, but what I mean is you could have put that into other fields like research or working on cures or medicines and things like that. But what was it about you that you felt that, I don't know, maybe science was being done a disservice in the classroom, and somebody like yourself needed to say to these young people who might consider science to be dull and boring and hard and you know, you'd have to be some sort of genius to get your head around it. What made you want to work with children?
I guess probably because I am a child myself, I'd imagine. I'm still, I guess, that 8-year-old kid that is just fascinated by how things work, and, you know, making slime and potions and stuff that bubbles and fizzes is just, it's just awesome fun to me. And I know it was fun for me when I was a kid, and it just really frustrates me that some children kind of end up not seeing that. And I know if we could get in front of them and show them the experiments, you know, if they could make their own catapults and rockets and and all these good stuff, I know that how fun they'd find it. I know how much they'd get out of it. I'm also hugely passionate that teaching children of today science is almost the most important thing to teach them, just because the way the world's going, evolving so fast, everything you teach a kid is going to be obsolete by the time they're an adult. You know, if you learn something when you're 10 and then you start working at maybe 20, 25 years old, all of the individual stuff has probably kind of expired over that time. But the scientific principles of, you know, how to, you know, try stuff out, test stuff, figure out how to problem solve, they're the skills that kids are just going to massively need going forward. So not only is it a lot of fun to build catapults and launch rockets and have bubbles and fizzing potions and all that jazz, it's also really teaching kids the skill that's never going to expire, you know, that's going to help them throughout their entire life, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I mean, you know that this works because you've worked with more than 500,000 children. I said 500,000 there. It's considerably over that now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fair bit. We tried to get the abacus out and do some calculations. It was a bit. It's a bit of a tricky business. Maths is not an exact science, as I like to say. But
Yes.
yeah, somewhere between 500,000 and 750,000. Like
Yeah.
we're somewhere in that
Because I think
in that zone.
when I saw you, it was about 500,000 children. So it's obviously grown considerably since then. So, I mean, here you are working as a scientist, working on projects for schools, working on projects for educational institutions, working with children to try and get them interested in science. I mean, is that where you will always remain, do you think? Have you got ambitions to branch into another area, or perhaps there's a thing about science for adults? I don't know whether or not... whether we're past it, but you tell me.
You're certainly not past it, and
Bless you.
I like to think that I'm not. I like to possibly delude myself that I'm still with it and know what's going on, I guess. But I'm so passionate about making science fun. I think there's something really special about kids like discovering new experiments, and they've got that natural curiosity to how things work. And I feel that there's a massive almost, I guess, gap in the market or in the education system or just in society, just kind of broadly speaking, where all these kids have got so much curiosity and they're so interested in how things work, and those they can do. We can make experiments and share ideas with them that use stuff they've already got lying around the house that don't have to cost any money, that can be really safe, accessible. And those kids can just do all that. There's kind of nothing in the way, So that's what I'm passionate about. And I guess there's so much to do. I can't see me doing anything else for a fair while.
Now, I think that next week's theme is all about journeys, isn't it? So what do you intend to talk about at the TEDx lecture?
I'm actually talking about another thing that I'm super passionate about. My title of my talk is Testing Beats Talent.
Sounds like Simon Cowell show that's in the making there.
Yeah, maybe so. Not with me doing any singing or dancing, I'm afraid. Not my skill set, but it's all about. There's this kind of myth that's kind of established itself, I think, amongst people that do relatively big goals, that you're like special or different or talented is the word that gets thrown around, that always makes me slightly mad inside. Because I know I'm not particularly talented, unfortunately, and I've still managed to get quite a lot of stuff done. And the way I kind of approach it is I guess, from my science background of actually testing stuff out. So it's about how you can practically test ideas within your own life to get whatever results you're looking for, whether that's, growing a business, growing a charity, helping more people, having an awesome relationship with your kids, doing science experiments at home, wherever that's applicable to that person. It's some science concepts that I think might really help.
Well, listen, it's a joy to talk to you again, Mark, and we look forward to seeing you at Curve next week. But for now, thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers, Mark. Marc Wileman there, scientist. And you can see his lecture and many others taking place at Leicester's Curve next week as part of the TED Talks lectures. And if you want to find out more information, including where you can get tickets and guest speakers, then go to TEDx Leicester, all one word, tedxleicester.co.uk, and you can find out a whole host more about the programme.